Have a aneurysm in the back of your brain that's pretty large. And to get your blood pressure down so they can perform the surgery. So be strong.
So much. I'm sorry, baby. I don't want to cry. I just want to be strong for you.
Storage Wars turned everyday auction hunters into household names, but the price of fame became steeper than anyone expected. While millions watched cast members bid on abandoned lockers, cameras missed the real story unfolding behind the scenes. Some stars lost their lives, while others lost everything else. The show that promised treasure delivered tragedy instead. What really happened after the cameras stopped rolling? And why does nobody talk about the cast members who paid the ultimate price? Join us as we find out all about what happened to Storage Wars stars behind the scenes. Mark Balello. Mark Balello used to show up to every storage auction dressed like he owned the place, and one could say he did. Designer suits, polished shoes, and expensive watches were his norm, and it earned him the nickname Rico Suave, because he understood presentation and did it well. His company, Balello Incorporated, moved merchandise fast, and his retail store stayed packed with customers hunting deals on auction finds. Mark knew how to work a room and close a sale. Behind the suits and smooth talk, Mark Balello was hiding a serious drug problem. He had been using methamphetamine for years, and by the time Storage Wars made him famous, the addiction had taken full control. The stress of the show only made things worse. Every argument, every slip-up, and every moment of frustration ended up on television for everyone to see. The public exposure pushed him deeper into isolation and shame. Away from the cameras, he was struggling to keep his business running and his life together, but the addiction kept tightening its grip until there was no escape left. In January 2013, he was arrested for possession of meth. He posted bail within hours and walked out. That freedom only lasted 2 days. His girlfriend found him slumped in his car inside the closed garage at his auction house. The engine was on, and carbon monoxide filled his lungs. Mark Balello died at 40 years old, alone in a vehicle with the motor running. But Mark's story is only just the opening strike in a series of tragedies that would fill the Storage Wars roster. The next casualty came from an enemy that attacked silently. What illness ambushed one of the show's most beloved veterans? Gunter Nezzoda. Gunter Nezzoda spent decades building his name in the rough-and-tumble world of storage auctions. Long before the TV cameras showed up, he was already hustling through storage yards all over California, spotting hidden gems most people would look past. He had this strange knack for it. One could say a sixth sense. While others picked through piles of junk, he would have already locked onto something valuable. When his son Rene joined him, it just worked. People loved watching them together on Storage Wars, a father teaching his son how to see what others couldn't. At their shop, Bargain Hunter thrift store in Poway, customers would drive from far away just to dig through what they'd found. In March 2023, Gunter Nezzoda began feeling unusually weak and short of breath. At first, he assumed it was just exhaustion from years of heavy work in storage auctions and on film sets. He continued pushing through, refusing to slow down, but the symptoms grew worse, including persistent fatigue, coughing, and weight loss. When he finally went for medical tests, doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis: Stage 4 lung cancer. It was aggressive and had already spread to multiple organs. Treatment options were limited, and time was short. Within weeks, his condition declined rapidly, marking the end of his long, hard-working life in the business. He died at 67, surrounded by family. Disease claimed Gunter without mercy. Another cast member faced a different kind of assault. So how did the show's biggest villain end up destroying himself? Dave Hester. Dave Hester made himself the bad guy on Storage Wars and honestly leaned into it. That loud "yup" of his could freeze a whole room. Everyone knew what came next. Dave was about to push the price so high that nobody else could make a dime. He liked playing the villain, and the producers loved having one. In 2012, everything flipped. Dave sued A&E and the production company.
When it comes to Dave Hester, one of the most recognizable stars of A&E's hit reality series Storage Wars,
And the claims he dropped hit reality TV like a bomb. He said the show was fake, that producers planted expensive stuff in lockers before filming, and that some cast members knew what was inside before the auctions even started. When he complained, he said they fired him. The legal battle between Dave Hester and the producers of Storage Wars quickly became lengthy and costly. Both sides hired multiple attorneys, and the case dragged on for months of depositions, filings, and delays. While the lawsuit continued, Dave's auction business suffered heavily. Without his television exposure, sales collapsed, and expenses piled up. The IRS began auditing his finances, and former business partners distanced themselves, some even suing for unpaid debts. Employees left as operations shut down. When the case finally settled, the outcome remained confidential, but insiders said the payout was minimal. Dave returned to small-scale online sales just to survive. Dave's legal battles destroyed his business empire, but the collateral damage extended beyond balance sheets and courtrooms, so that even his own family couldn't escape the fallout. So what happened to the people closest to the disgraced reality star? Dave Hester Jr. Dave Hester's son grew up watching his dad turn dusty storage units into a full-blown business. He learned it all from the bottom, sorting through boxes, tagging inventory, and figuring out what would sell and what wouldn't. Everyone thought he'd take over someday and keep the Hester name alive in the auction world. Then, Storage Wars happened. Dave got famous, and fame changed everything. When the lawsuit hit, the drama followed. Old partners started talking, ex-employees aired their stories, and online threads filled up with people tearing him apart. Before long, the Hester name was less about business and more about controversy. For Dave Hester's son, carrying his father's name became a constant reminder of the controversy surrounding Storage Wars. At school, teachers and classmates often brought it up, sometimes joking, sometimes curious. Even his friends' parents would ask questions about the show or the lawsuit. Over time, the attention became overwhelming. He felt defined by his father's public image rather than his own identity. Eventually, he decided to step away from it completely. He changed his name on social media, deleted old posts, and avoided any connection to the show. It was his way of starting fresh and living privately. The business that was supposed to bond them ended up breaking them. Family bonds weren't the only casualties when reality television fame turned toxic. What happened when one cast member's routine drive home turned into a nightmare? Jeff Jarrett. At 35, Jeff Jarrett was the face of the new school in storage auctions. While the old-timers were still posting ads in the paper, he was online, building a brand and selling faster than anyone else. People called him the liquidator, because if he got his hands on something, it didn't sit long. He worked non-stop, auctioning in the morning, running the warehouse in the afternoon, and selling online at night. 7 days a week, no real breaks. His wife used to joke that she needed an appointment just to see him. In November 2020, after finishing a long day at an auction in Riverside, Jeff Jarrett began his usual drive home. It was a route he'd taken countless times before without issue. Midway through the drive, he felt an unusual pressure building in his head that he couldn't explain. His vision in the left eye started to blur, and his hand went numb on the steering wheel. He recognized something was seriously wrong, but still tried to stay calm and make it home. Within minutes, the symptoms worsened, signaling the onset of a significant medical emergency. The pain struck suddenly, intense and overwhelming, as if a hammer had struck inside his skull. His left side went numb, his hand and leg unresponsive. Yet he managed to steer the car to the shoulder. With difficulty, he reached for his phone and dialed 911. His speech was slurred, each word a struggle, but the operator kept him talking, giving instructions and reassurance while dispatching emergency medical help. Paramedics were alerted immediately. Doctors later confirmed it was a hemorrhagic stroke caused by a ruptured blood vessel in the brain. There was no warning. It was a sudden failure of his biology. Jared's medical emergency was only the beginning of a months-long ordeal that would test every limit of human endurance and medical intervention. But that won't be the only medical emergency of the show. Bari Weiss. Bari Weiss didn't join Storage Wars for the paycheck. He was already set long before the cameras rolled, having made his fortune in the produce business. For him, storage auctions were just a way to have fun in retirement. He was living the life, showing up in a vintage Cadillac one day, a custom chopper the next, and even a Sherman tank once. He was hard to miss. His signature style was the skeleton gloves, the slick gray hair, and that grin. Women adored him. Guys envied and wanted his life. Bari was what people imagined retirement could be: fun, free, and with loads of money. Motorcycles were a lifelong passion for Bari Weiss, something he treated almost like a second language. He began riding at 16 and never stopped. Over the decades, he learned every detail about engines, handling, and customization, often restoring and modifying bikes himself. His garage wasn't just storage, it was a museum of rare and vintage motorcycles, each one personally chosen. Friends and fellow collectors often admired his taste, with some estimating his collection's value to be higher than most houses. For Bari, riding wasn't just a hobby. It was freedom, identity, and a constant part of his everyday life. It was always a smooth ride until April 2019, when he went out on what was supposed to be a perfect ride. Bari was just cruising with no cameras, a simple, regular day of a very rich guy. Then a car pulled out of nowhere, with no time to stop or even think. The crash was brutal. Witnesses said it sounded like an explosion. Bari hit the pavement hard. The impact was so bad that he could barely breathe as paramedics rushed in. He was airlifted out. 9 hours of surgery followed. Broken ribs, shattered bones, punctured organs. He spent a week in a coma while his family waited, hoping he'd wake up. Bari's physical injuries were catastrophic enough, but on the flip side, there was another story. Sometimes it destroyed entire families and futures. So, whose mother lost everything trying to save her son? Nicholas Allen. Nicholas Allen appeared on Storage Wars only a few times, enough that regular viewers recognized him, though he was never part of the main cast. He understood the storage auction business, could identify valuable units quickly, and knew when to place bids and when to pass. His approach was careful and calculated, and he operated professionally at various auction sites. For a period, everything appeared stable. He made consistent purchases and built a modest reputation among other buyers. Then legal issues arose. The charges were serious, involving the court system, and they quickly disrupted his life and finances, bringing his career in storage auctions to a halt. The charges were serious, the kind that change a life overnight. Prosecutors had evidence, and they were patient and careful. Nicholas needed a strong defense, and that doesn't come cheap. His mom was 73, a woman who'd done everything right, worked her whole life, saved what she could, and paid off her home. She wasn't rich, but she was secure. Then her son called from jail, and all that planning went out the window. She mortgaged the house, emptied her savings, paid for lawyers and experts, doing whatever it took to give Nicholas a fighting chance. But in the end, it didn't matter. He was convicted, and she lost everything. Now she rents a small apartment and picks up part-time work just to stay afloat. When she can afford the gas, she visits him. The fame that once seemed like a blessing ended up shining light on the worst chapter of their lives. Financial devastation wasn't the only collateral damage spreading from storage wars. The industry's collapse rippled through communities. What happens to the employees who showed up to work one morning expecting a normal day? 12 people lost their jobs overnight. Mark Balelo's company wasn't huge, but it employed 12 people full-time. Warehouse guys were sorting through old storage units, retail clerks were helping customers on the floor, drivers were moving loads across town, and a couple of office workers were handling the books. None of them were famous or chasing TV glory. They were just regular people trying to keep bills paid and food on the table. Then Mark was gone. Just like that. That morning, 12 employees arrived at Mark Baleo's business expecting a normal day of work. Instead, they were met with flashing police lights, yellow crime scene tape, and confusion. By midday, the closure was confirmed. The business was shut permanently. No severance, no advance notice, nothing beyond the last paycheck they had earned. 12 families suddenly lost their primary income. Rent and mortgage payments were still due, groceries needed to be bought, and bills piled up. The specialized skills each employee had developed over the years in storage auctions and resale work were no longer transferable, leaving them struggling to find new employment quickly. The shop shut down for good, leaving another space in a fading strip mall. The same story kept repeating across others from storage wars. Gunter's store closed after his death. Dave's lawsuits ruined his crew. Jeff's stroke ended his operation. Behind the show's fame were real people who lost everything when the cameras stopped rolling. The employment devastation was just one thread in a web of destruction that entangled people who never appeared on camera. Sometimes, the collateral damage hit romantic relationships that had survived decades. Barry Weiss's girlfriend. Barry Weiss's motorcycle crash back in April 2019 was all over the news. Everyone knew Barry from Storage Wars, so the coverage was non-stop, with updates about his condition, photos and messages from fans wishing him well. The TV crowd really showed up for him. What hardly got mentioned, though, was that his girlfriend was right there with him on that bike. They'd been together for 30 years, always riding, always chasing that shared love of open roads and a little danger. That car that pulled out without looking didn't just hit Barry, it hit both of them. The crash threw them into the air. Barry was in bad shape. 9 hours of surgery, a week-long coma, and broken bones everywhere. But she wasn't spared either. Her back was broken, her spine damaged. She went through months of treatment and therapy. And even now, 3 years later, she's still in pain, still working through rehab, and still trying to move the way she used to. Barry Weiss and his girlfriend had been together for 30 years, sharing a life full of motorcycles, travel, and adventure. The April 2019 motorcycle accident changed everything. Both were seriously injured, Barry with multiple fractures, internal injuries, and a week-long coma, and his girlfriend with a broken back and spinal damage. While Barry's medical crisis dominated news coverage and public attention, her recovery was slower and less visible. The physical pain, months of therapy, and emotional strain put enormous pressure on their relationship. Ultimately, the couple separated. Decades of partnership ended because the accident shifted focus, resources, and energy almost entirely onto Barry's recovery, leaving her in the background. They both lost a lot that day. Barry healed enough to move forward, at least in public. She's still dealing with the quiet, painful aftermath, still fighting to walk without hurting, still forgotten in a story that was once theirs together. Personal relationships weren't the only casualties left in unmarked graves. What transformed crowded auction lots into empty parking lots? Why only 7 people show up now? A group of people visited the storage auction not long ago, just to see how things were holding up. 7 people showed up. 3 of them came together in one car. The auctioneer looked worn out, muttering about how he might retire soon because the effort just isn't worth it anymore. Anyone could feel the life had gone out of the business. Most storage places have switched to online auctions now. Less hassle, less risk, fewer people to deal with. From their side, it makes sense. But for buyers, it killed what made this whole thing special. No chatter, no rivalries, no crowd buzz. Just cold screens and low bids. Units that once sparked bidding wars now sell for next to nothing. Stuff that would have gone for $800 back in the storage wars days barely clears $150 now. Nobody fights for anything. Nobody seems to care. It's quiet. Too quiet. One old buyer told me he misses the madness. Back then, it was wild and unpredictable. Every locker felt like a chance at gold. Now it's primarily tired men trying to make ends meet off forgotten junk. The fun, the friendship, and the thrill were all gone. Storage companies actually made rules to stop another storage wars from happening. They don't want chaos, they want order. Pay up or move out. Simple. What used to feel like a buzzing community now feels like a dying mall. Empty halls, empty wallets, and an industry that never really recovered from its own fame. Which of these stories surprised you the most? The fame, the tragedy, or how quietly it all disappeared? Do you think storage wars helped the people who made it famous, or did it slowly destroy them? Let us know what you think. Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it. You will enjoy it.